Akshita Sinha this side. So, sir, let me just introduce you to our audience. So, let me start. Andrew Spitzer is a company stage manager born in London. He has worked in the theatre for over 40 years and last 30 at the Royal National Theatre of Great Britain. Currently working with Ralph Fiennes on the Four Quarters by T.S. Eliot. He has worked with Sir Tom Stoppard, Sir David Hare, Howlett Printer, and many more. His tours have been take him all over the world, from Aberdeen to Adelaide, Belfast to Broadway. The shows have played to audience ranging from a COVID-restricted 200 to 140,000 in Hyde Park, with the Who when not touring. Andrew loves to spend time at home with his wife and daughter and with 2 rabbits. So hello everyone. Hello sir. So let's start.
Hello everyone.
Yeah. So let's start with the questionnaires and interaction. Looking forward to. So yeah, Chetan, and I guess who is now putting up the questions. So let's start with that. Okay.
Pranjali, you may start with the questions.
Yes, yes. So, sir, we have first question from Dipti Naik. So, Dipti, would you like to please unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, sure. Hello, sir. I'm Dipti Naik from India. And yes, sir. So, as Akshita told us that you have been involved in theatre for a long time. So, like, what is your interpretation, or how would you interpret Shakespeare's life as a stage? Like, what is it for you?
That's a terrific first question. I didn't see that one coming. That's a left field curveball, as the Americans would say. Shakespeare, well, obviously, for the English-speaking world, Shakespeare is pretty much the theatrical god. And you mentioned holding a mirror up to nature and all the world's a stage. I think what you've got with Shakespeare, obviously a great playwright and a great poet, and he completely, for me, and for quite a few academics and other people who just enjoy the wonderful poetry and imagery of his genius work, he really lays bare the human condition. He can, in a play, really the internal workings of his characters are genuine emotions. And I mean, so often we look back in history and read very dry historical reports of things. But in fact, there's been a series of books recently by Hilary Mantel, Wolf Hall, Bring Up the Bodies, and the
I guess you've become mute, sir. Yeah, you have muted yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I mustn't wave my hands around and do things. Where have we got up to? Anyway, for me, he brings a total psychological reality to his characters, and then therefore we can place ourselves in those historical situations, but also learn from the past for the current and also the future. So when he says all the world's a stage, he's saying man's condition, I mean man, humanity, their condition, it doesn't change internally. We live our lives with similar love, regret, etc., etc. Our internal dialogue remains the same. The challenges change. I mean, I'm sitting here at 9:30 talking to India, and I can see you in real time and you can hear me. Well, you know, that's a wonder of the modern world. So for me, Shakespeare lays out life properly. And when he says all the world's a stage, he's just saying that, you know, the human condition is the same. And I think that's as much as I can say, really. I mean, I adore doing Shakespeare. I've done Hamlet a couple of times, Antony and Cleopatra a couple of times. And, you know, you never cease to learn from Shakespeare. Is that all right? Does that answer your question?
And like, what is your favorite Shakespeare's work?
I recently did Antony and Cleopatra again, and I think for a woman, I think Cleopatra is possibly the true great female role in Shakespeare. Not that, now that we're gender fluid with casting, it could be a male and vice versa. And Hamlet has just opened in London at Young Vic with a girl playing Hamlet, and we've just had Saria McKellen at 80 whatever he is playing Hamlet. So for me, Hamlet for the men and Cleopatra for the women in the sexist old world terms. In newspeak, I'd go for Hamlet for either gender.
Okay, sir, that's great.
No problem.
And,
thank you for your question.
yeah, so but I had one more question actually.
Of course.
Yeah, so as Akshita said, and also in the bio that we have, like you have worked with many wonderful stars. You've worked with Arthur Miller, sir.
Yeah.
So like, I would just want to ask you, would you like to quote some anecdotes like that you took from them and they are kind of long lasting in your life?
Oh, there are so many. I mean, funnily enough, when I got made redundant, COVID redundant, at the end of last year, everyone was saying, you've got to write a book. But the trouble is, if you write a book, you've got to prove everything. And I don't want to upset everyone I work with, because there are good stories and there are bad stories. Okay, Arthur Miller, I adore. Arthur Miller, I looked after a couple of times on platform performances, which are similar to this, but live on stage. I also did, which one of his? I did a couple of his. The American Dream one, Long Days, not Long Days Journey, that's usually. Anyway, and he did come along for rehearsal, and we'd always do a Q&A at one stage during the run. And he did one, and there was someone who, he was married to, famously married to Marilyn Monroe. Of all the people living or dead, who would you like to meet again the most? This guy wants to hear about Marilyn, it's obvious. And he just went, you know, well, living, there's quite a few, but if they've been dead, well, I don't want to meet them because they'd smell. And that's the man. He was funny, and he without being totally rude, he was able to cut down that question, because he doesn't want to talk about Marilyn. It's his past, and you know, if he does, he wants to do it in a private. If in fact there was one moment, he was giving notes to one of his plays, and he gave very, very detailed notes for over an hour in the Olivier Theatre. And at the end of it, he said, I suppose what I'm saying is it's not a classical piece. People treat it like a classical piece, and people are very reverential about this play now. What I suppose I'm saying is make it faster and make it funnier. And, you know, and it was one of those plays where everyone is terribly, terribly sort of respectful of, but he was a great guy. I really liked Arthur Miller, and his wife, who actually predeceased him, was Inga. She was a photographer, and they did some fabulous books. She took the photographs, and he wrote. They went to Russia, and they did one in the country and in the States, and she was a really lovely lady as well. So I really felt honored. But I mean, I love Tom Stoppard. I love, you know, Alan Bennett. These are all wonderful, wonderful people. I was lucky enough to do the History Boys with Alan, and we did a big world tour. We were actually meant to come to India, but I think someone read the script and went, I'm not sure the subject matter is quite right, because of course an older teacher is, well, a suspect with the boys in that play. So I think the decision was taken that at that stage it wasn't the right play to bring in, which is a shame. But you know, I've loved every project I've gone on, even the ones that were turkeys. I feel that I enter that world and I give it my all. And I mean, even some of the duds have been so much fun as well. So there we are.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
Pranjal,
so
you can
Komal?
take next question. Yeah.
Okay, Komal wants to say something. Komal, will you please unmute yourself?
Hi, Kamal.
a very positive vibe with Sir, and good afternoon. First of all, sorry for that.
I've
It's good over here. I'm feeling good. That's what all I wanted to say.
okay. Well, yeah. I mean, with regard to that, I suppose I don't know. I had a few medical issues when I was younger, and I had to spend a bit of time in and out of hospital when I was much younger, and even later, I've had medical issues. But I'm healthy and fit, and I suppose every day I open my eyes and I go, it's another day, and I'm here, and I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to enjoy myself, even when you've rehearsed a really difficult play for 6 weeks and you're in the middle of a tech. The tech is when you take all the rehearsals, put them on stage, and you add the lights, the sound, the set, and the pressures on. Everyone is looking to you. Although, the creative decisions are being taken by those directors, the actual artistic director, and then you've got the lighting guy and the sound guy, and everyone's creating the play. You've got to keep the ball moving up the hill. Mute. Am I alive again?
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, I got muted by then somehow. You're pushing the boulder up the hill, and you've got to keep the momentum going. And if you do it in the sort of boring way, people aren't going to listen to you, and they sort of withdraw into their artistic shell. So you've got to keep pushing it. And the best way to do it is go, come on, we've got a great play, and we're going to make this work. And I suppose that's just rubbed off. I'm just happy. Every day I get up and go, I get to see the rabbits, I get to see my wife, I've got a lovely job when I've got a job. I'm freelance now, so currently I'm waiting till the 8th of November, then I go back into rehearsals with Ray Fiennes. And we'll re-rehearse the play, and we're doing it in the West End for a little while. Then we're, So yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I could sit and worry, but deep down, I used to pinch myself every time I went into the National Theatre, and I suffered a little bit of the imposter syndrome. I think Graham touched on it. Graham Shelton touched on it in his talk. The fact is, you find yourself in a situation, you go, how did I get here? Wow, this is amazing. But the fact is, you look for the answers you solve problems with the correct answer, and you go, oh, maybe I can do this. Obviously you can, but inside you go, me here? So I'd never try and suppress that. I'd sort of accept it and use it, really, the imposter syndrome. But yeah, I don't know. I like my life. I like what I do, and I just want to continue doing it. So that's why, funnily enough, this is how this speech came to be. Insofar as Tammy called me and said she was doing this speech for you guys, and it was about finding the good in the bad, i.e., opportunity and adversity. And the fact that I'd lost my job did have a big impact on me. After 30 years in one institution, and then in the end it's like so I did go through a bit of a dark patch, and that's what's talked about, briefly touched on in the talk. And I had to sort of reassess my situation, and I just went, okay, this is where I find myself. These are the challenges. I got to set myself a goal of this, and this, and now I find myself back to where I was, really, I suppose. I'm not in work every day, which with a permanent job one is, but I've got some lovely projects coming up, and who knows? The world's your oyster. Thank you. I hope that answers.
Yeah, Trupti ma'am,
Yeah.
do you want
hello,
to
sir.
speak something?
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hi.
So there are lots of aspiring writers who write plays and movie scripts. Okay. So there is a fine line between overthinking and being thoughtful. So how do we mark that difference? Because a person like me thinks of others, what they will think, how we should react, which words of us will affect them. So there has to be a fine line. So what is that fine line? we should consider that no, we are not overthinking, we are just being thoughtful, or we are just being we are not being thoughtful and we are being overthinking here.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting modern dilemma, and because it's a progressive dilemma, and it's one that one has to take it into consideration. I mean, I checked myself because I'm used to saying, actresses play this and actors play that. Well, of course, they don't need to anymore, and they never had to, but that was just the way the world was. So one has to, I don't know, I mean, there is a fine line, and I think it's more difficult at a younger age. My daughter, I mean, really is the police on my conversation on this. She goes, Dad, no, this. And I go, oh, no, I see that point. Remember, I'm like some terrible old early version of a computer that works on a database which is way out of date, and I'm trying to reboot. When you've got an old computer and they bring up all the I don't even know the word. When all the new stuff comes and there's not quite enough gigabytes here to take it all in, and so in the end, unfortunately, that computer gets binned, particularly with certain organizations that make computers. Whereas other computers, you can put more memory in and reboot. But I think that's true of how the human brain works in a way. There's so much information. My sister was a lecturer for the police in the City of London way back, and even way back then in the 1990s. Every 2 weeks, they were reissued with a series of words which they were now not allowed to use as police officers. So you see how things develop, and certain words have new meaning, and certain words that had a perfectly innocent meaning have fallen into a modern usage, which makes them derogatory. I mean, and so it's a very fine line. I tell you what, I think if you're good and your soul is good and your internal wiring is right, and I believe everyone's is, just trust in who you are, and what you say. If what you do is have a mesh around you, which is I must think this through before I say it, you can't be spontaneous. So you're basically backing yourself into an intellectual corner based on others' perception of you. I think you should just say what you think, knowing the lexicon that's acceptable, but not if you overthink it. I think you're absolutely right. I think you I can't even use that word, because emasculate has a gender basis. You take away from your initial thought. So I would say live your life authentically, lovingly, properly, and if in the end you are going to upset some people. There are people who I upset, and I don't mean to, and sorry, I'm 61 now, so I don't have to go through as many reboots as someone as young as yourself will have to. But remember, it's always changing, and what's right now will be wrong later. The one thing you do learn as you grow older is, milk's good for you. Milk isn't good for you. Oh no, actually milk is good for you. Tomatoes, tomatoes are the wonder fruit. Actually, no, tomatoes have got this toxin. Oh no, we were wrong about that. Tomatoes are fine. So you will find as you go through life, nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
Was that me? I've done it again. I've realized, have I muted myself? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, it just came up and said muted. I banged on the desk. So in a way, I think, if you come from the right place with the right heart, just live your life knowing you're doing it lovingly and your intention is pure. If someone's pulling you up on your language, go, oh, I didn't know that. It's all right. It's all right to say, I didn't know that. Thanks. I won't, I did that to a director recently. I did a show, and I say recently, 8 months ago, something came up in one of these WhatsApp chats, and he used a word, and I just privately messaged him and said, you're not allowed to use that word anymore. The world's moved on, and I was like, oh, really? And what I thought was really sweet was he messaged Speedy says, I shouldn't be using this word. Is this correct? And they all went, yes. He went, oh, thanks. Now I know. But he just used it and then found out. Do it without fear, and then but be willing to learn and go, I didn't mean to offend. I think I've blathered on enough about that. Thank you for the question. I hope that answers it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This
So
is
we have
your-
next.
Yes. Yes.
I'm ready for any more questions.
Yes, sir. We have next question from Runali. Runali, please unmute yourself.
Hello, sir. I'm Renali.
Hi.
Sir, I just want to ask that what has been your one mantra or thought that
Monali,
motivates you?
your voice is quite low. Can you?
If you hold your microphone up again, we'll hear you. We heard you. Perfect.
Okay. Am I audible properly right now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Sir, I was asking what's your mantra or motivation that motivates you to do something good every day?
I don't have I suppose, thank God I made it through the night. The fact that I wake up and I open my eyes and there is another day there, and it doesn't matter if it's snow and cold or sunny and bright. It's another day to get up and go and do something. My Victoria, who I don't know if you saw at the beginning, she was my IT assistant, my wife, came and set me up. And when I'm not working, I sometimes need a big stick to prod me and go and do the garden, do all those things in the house. I try and there are certain things I just do. As I wake up and then immediately there's a list of about 40 minutes worth of work which I try and do, and then that gets me started. In fact, someone said to me once about an old Royal Naval phrase, which is as soon as you get up, make your bed, because if the day is great, you've got a bed ready to get into at the end of it. And if it's rubbish, you don't have to make your bed to get into it to make the next day come. So in a way, I think what helps motivate people is a sort of routine, and it can be very small. It can be getting up, making tea, doing the rabbits, or whatever is in your life. But having something that brings you back into a routine which works for you helps me then move on. And I try and look at life positively every day. Some days I wake up and I go, yeah, I'd really like to still be at the National. But then another day, but that's very rare. And I go, well, hang on, I'm doing this other work, so that's fine. So we tend to hark back ties not in a sort of ghosting way, but severing ties and looking forward. Momentum, that's what it is. That's the word I was looking for. I went all around the houses. Momentum is what drives you. So if anything, T.S. Eliot, the Four Quartets, not farewell but fare forward. Everything, the past is the past and has gone, and it's wonderful to revisit it in our heads and conversationally, but the future is everything. And that's why we have to listen to everyone who tells us about climate change, who tells us about all the things. Some of them will be wrong, some of them won't. With regard to climate change, personally, I think that's the big hot potato at the moment. But onwards and upwards. There you are, there's a mantra. It's a boring one, but onwards, forward, never back. And if you wake up and you're miserable, then hide from a few people till you feel a bit more positive, or else they go, If I went into work and went, another 2 weeks of rehearsal, everyone would go, oh yeah, 2 weeks of rehearsal. I go and go, God, that run yesterday was fantastic. Did you see that bit where, always, Monty Python's always look on the bright side of life. That's an old man's comedy show from England years ago. And always look on the bright side of life. Forwards, upwards, onwards. All the best.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
No problem.
Yes, we have next question from Sanya Singh. Sanya, please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, Pranjali. Hello, I'm Sanya.
Oh, hi. I've got 3 of you at the moment. Two.
So, I was just wondering that the theater is a place where the same person takes on different characters at different times, and so how does that affect that person's personality or mentality, or have you seen any changes in people around you who put on these different characters, or maybe some personal experience?
That's a real interesting one, and it actually interestingly harps back to one of the earlier questions with regard to All the World's a Stage. We are, to an extent, playing characters. All of us are playing characters at the moment. There's a certain, there are status games being played, and within society, you go and address your boss differently than you address someone else, and therefore, I think you're talking about I believe you're talking about the psychology of an actor, as opposed to society. But if we look at society first as a greater thing, I think we're all putting on masks all the time anyway, and that's why when I walk into an institution for the first time, I am as open and friendly to the first person I meet, who might be the doorman and the cleaners, because it's early in the morning, to the guy I sit down in front of, who I've got to convince to give me a job, because I believe that we got to spread a little bit of happiness around our lives, and I just do that anyway without thinking. It's not conscious thing. With regard to actors, yes. Now there are method actors, people who have to live in that character, inhabit the character, and that becomes part of their true psyche rather than pretending. And when actors are playing particularly damaged characters, yes, for a while they can become withdrawn. They may shun the social occasions that sometimes were around productions, and they become more introverted and live within that character. Ultimately, it's rather like the stuff you learn for an exam. You know it, you have it at your fingertips, and you blurge it out that day when you're writing your 4-hour dissertation or whatever. And then gradually time erodes it in your memory. And I mean, there are actors who've gone off to live in the wilds because they're playing a wild man, and that's what they believe. And I do know of some actors who've really taken it to the nth degree. In fact, there's a very, very old story. There was a film called Marathon Man, and it's about the ex-Nazis and how they escaped, I think, to Brazil, anyway, South America. And Dustin Hoffman, who is an American actor, an older American actor now, he plays this guy who's being pursued by the Nazis. And there's this one scene where Sir Laurence Olivier, who's dead now, is a wonderful English actor. He's playing a dentist, and a psychotic not ex-Nazi, he's still a Nazi, but now it's the 1980s. And they pursue him through the night. Hoffman's brought in, and he does horrible things to his teeth, tortures him via his teeth. And Dustin Hoffman comes in to the set, and he went, I didn't sleep last night. Every time I felt like sleeping, I ran. And my dear fellow, what are you saying? He said, well, your thugs have pursued me through the night. So I thought if I didn't sleep, and I actually went for a big run, and I didn't wash this morning, and I haven't washed for a couple of days, and I really got myself, And Olivier said, my dear fellow, whatever happened to acting? So, there's the old school who basically, I remember we were doing a show with a director called Lindsay Anderson. He did some extraordinary films back in the 60s, If being one of them. And anyway, a lot of films. And we had this actress, and she had this huge emotional speech. And we were doing it just before lunch. And he went, it's lunchtime. We'll come back to that after lunch. Well, lunch with Lindsay didn't last an hour. It could last up to 3 hours. They would go out and they'd sit in a nice restaurant and they'd have a lovely meal. And then it'd be, let's have a dessert. Let's have and then they'd finally get back. Well, this lunchtime had lasted about 2 hours. My lunchtime was just 1 hour, But we wait for them to get back. And they get back, and And Gooby, Gabriella Lloyd, goes onto set, and she starts doing it. And she went, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lindsay. I'm really sorry. I just can't feel it. I had it before lunch, and now I just can't feel it." And he said, "Well, you'll just have to fall back on technique, won't you?" So that part of acting is the ability to project emotion onto one's face, into one's being, to convince us that they are feeling those emotions. And there are the others who sometimes want to feel the emotions genuinely and will hurt themselves. I mean, hurt themselves to do it by not sleeping and, you know, throwing themselves around. But no way is right or wrong. It's just the way different people make it through. And yeah, have I seen an actor totally psychologically damaged? Do you know, I think possibly the only one I can think of offhand was Daniel Day-Lewis, who was a fantastic actor, fantastic film actor. And his father was Cecil Lewis, who was a poet laureate. He also wrote books, thrillers. And his father had died just before he came to the National. And this occurred just before I went there in 1989. And he was playing Hamlet on stage in the Olivier. And in his room, he'd built a little shrine to his father that had a few of the books and stuff there. And you know, at the beginning of Hamlet, he sees his dead father. What happens is we see a scene on the ramparts, and these two servants, soldiers, centuries, see this ghost of Hamlet's father, King Hamlet, and they call Hamlet. They say, "You've got to, you know, not call him." They say, "You've got to come up and see this." And he goes, "No, ridiculous." And they say, "No, you've got to see this." They drag him up there, and sure enough, Hamlet's dead father, King Hamlet, comes and tells him that the uncle murdered him. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's early in the play. You've got 3 hours to go after that. However, a bit more. Dan Day-Lewis was there, and they were doing that scene, and he just froze. He stopped, and everyone, my friend who was stage manager, just went, "I think he's trying something new." And then the silence grew and grew and grew, and they went on stage, and he just said, "I've just seen my father." And for him, in that moment, he saw his dead father on stage. It completely freaked him out. He left the show. I don't think has ever been back on stage since. He's had a wonderful film career, absolutely brilliant film career, but I don't think he's ever tried to go back on stage. But he's brilliant, but that one moment of truly living in the moment gave him an epiphany, not necessarily a good one, that meant he's never worked on stage again. But it didn't stop him having a fantastic career. I mean, also, he's an extraordinary man. He went off and became a cobbler in Florence, which, you know, just decided, film star, yeah, I'll do a film later down the road. He went off, he learned to be a cobbler and made beautiful Italian leather shoes in Florence. Extraordinary bloke, extraordinary. Anyway, so yeah, I suppose one has to be really careful of one's mental health when portraying other people. And interestingly, some of the people who are least mentally suited to the job find themselves in acting and then make incredible decisions on stage. So it's weird. It's a weird old industry. There's a lot of mad people in there. I'm one of them. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much for your answer.
No problem. Have a good day. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too.
Yes, Trupti, can you please unmute yourself?
So, sir, I have another question. The question is, we globally know that to remain fit, we should do some physical exercise. But
Right.
but to keep our mind fit and sane, what do you think we should do, the youngsters? Plus, what part do you think awareness, self-awareness, and self-reflection play? And do you practice self-reflection?
My I agree totally on exercise. I would advocate that hugely. I'm very bad with it. I do a lot of walking. I do make sure that I get out and about. Unfortunately, because touching on a few of the medical issues I've got, I had a new hip, and that led to a problem in my saddle pulmonary embolism, which means my lungs are a bit shot. So I have to be a bit careful about what I do, and also very careful about the old COVID, because even though I'm double jabbed, I really do not want it, because I think it might be curtains. So I've got to be a bit careful with regard to that. Self-reflection, do you know what? I'm really bad at it. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I look back sometimes and cringe, of course, but on the whole, I go, in the time I've got left, if there are things I regret, better I do something good in the future than worry about the wrong I did in the past. Because no one gets it right all the time. No one. So we all have regrets. But if we dwell on them, we are taking time out of the future where we could make good. Now, I know that self-reflection is an incredibly strong tool for some people, and I think, you know, it's horses for courses. It's what works for the person, for you. I keep looking at myself and not the camera. I'm very bad on these things. So I'm not great on self-reflection, but I do see it as a very positive tool for some. I suppose when one feels one's time is more limited as you get older, you know, you've got to spend your time more preciously. But one shouldn't waste time anyway, at any age. So I'm not answering that question very well, because the answer is I'm not very good at either. Sorry. Oh, have you frozen?
Yeah, no problem, sir. So another question that we have is from Abhishek. So Abhishek, you may turn on your video.
It is making me and other people feel. It is making me and other people.
Trupti, you can turn off your video because I think there is some problem with your network.
Do you want to type it, and then I'll answer it?
Okay, I think Trupti, yes, Trupti.
Yes, I have finished with my question. I guess Pranjali can read Abhishek's question.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
Abhishek, will you please unmute, or should I read it?
Yes, I will read it. Means I will ask the question. Hello, sir.
Okay, got it.
Hi.
Sir, yesterday in the talk, you mentioned the importance of persistence. So I want to ask, at some things we are persistent in some good habits also, but it is hard for some habits to make to stick to it. So can we trick ourselves to maintain with to stick with the habit?
Right. I think the question is to do with persistence and how some people find the ability to fall by the wayside more easy, and how can we keep ourselves focused and up to the challenge? Is that an understanding of the basics?
Yes, sir.
Great. I think the answer to that question is to be realistic in the goals you set yourself. So my memory of that bit of the speech was acceptance of the situation that you find yourself in, and then accept that challenge to get out of it, and then to set goals and to resolve to keep them. And that's where the persistence comes into play. And I think the important thing is not to reach initially, it depends on the size of the hole one finds oneself in. If it's a huge problem, like after 30 years you find yourself redundant, you are going to feel or I did, in a pretty dark place. And you can, if you set the goals too high, if you go, right, I want to be up here somewhere, you just go, I want to wake up tomorrow. Today's goal is I want to wake up tomorrow feeling better than I did today. As small a goal as that. And then that's achievable. And then if you just start with that one building block, that one building block, feeling better each day, builds you a wall. And with that wall, you can protect yourself mentally, and you can say, well, I've achieved this already. This will to every day be a little bit better than I was. Ultimately, it's like that funny maths thing where they say, would you rather take, I don't know, what is it? Something, I can't do the math. Someone can do the math. There's one of these math things that's doing the round, and it's, would you take $10 million as a gift, or a magic $1 which will double every day? Okay, so you go, oh, everyone go, oh, $10 million, I have the $10 million. When in fact, of course, if you get the $1, after one day it's $2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So you end up getting far more than $10 million. And I think, I know that sounds like I'm way off beam what I'm saying there, but what I suppose I'm trying to say is that a small difference every day can build to something quite big and quite quickly. So I think the way to persist is to have goals that are achievable and push them a little bit every time. But I mean, the ultimate goal is to get out of depression, get back to where you were and how you felt in a different environment, for me. So yeah, I suppose the trick is set the goals at a realistic achievability and then reset the goals at another achievability, and therefore the trajectory is always up. There will be slipping, there will be Sisyphus and his boulder, but you know, onwards and upwards, I suppose. I hope that answers.
Yes, absolutely, sir.
Oh, someone asked me a question. Someone said, could you rename the actor who went off to be a cobbler? Daniel Day-Lewis, wonderful actor. My left, he's won Oscars. Daniel Day-Lewis, Dan Day-Lewis is known as. I didn't work on that show. It all happened before I got there, so I've never met him, but I mean, I've seen him on screen, and he's amazing. He reminds me of him and Rafe are very similar, I think, in their brilliance on screen. They do just enough. They know exactly how little you need to do. Sometimes, you know, when it's all a bit, it's like, oh. So they're great actors. Anyway, sorry. Next question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, Mrinali wants to ask the question. So she's saying that, so would you like to work in Indian theatre or Indian film industry? And if yes, with whom would you like to work?
Well, that's fascinating. I know very little about Indian cinema apart from it's bigger than Hollywood. I mean, obviously, I mean, incredibly action-packed spectaculars. The bits I have seen, I mean, extraordinary. I've never made a film. I'm about to make a film. I've done loads of videos where I've done a play and they've come in and they've shot it as live, and it's gone out on the cinema, NT Live, which went round the world during the pandemic. For the first time, they released that footage to the world via the internet. It had only ever been shown in cinemas before then, and that was a very, very good thing. I enjoyed doing those. However, it was very similar to just doing the play and having it recorded. However, 4 Quartets by T.S. Eliot, Rafe's sister, Sophie, one of his sisters, is a film director. She makes documentaries. She's made them all over the world, and she's going to film it onto celluloid, actually onto film. So I was actually late. Well, I wasn't late, but I was behind schedule on this project on getting stuff done for you guys. So the speech you saw yesterday was slightly cobbled together at the end. I mean, I'd written it, but getting it filmed was problematical. The first few takes, I'd got pictures behind me, and they went, no, we want a nice plain background like we all are today. There were certain issues which meant I had to keep going back and doing stuff. And we'd just lost this film studio. We're going to finish the play just before Christmas in London. We were then going to get the set moved over to a film studio and record it fairly quickly just before Christmas. However, the studio said they'd got a better offer. And unfortunately, our project, the other project, ran for weeks and weeks and weeks. And post-pandemic, obviously, people have suffered financially. These places where films weren't always being made, although they've suffered less than the theatre, of course. They went with the longer thing. So we were scrabbling around together trying to find a new studio to take it. I think, in fact, Sophie's going to see one on Wednesday, so hopefully we'll be all good on that. So I'm really looking forward to that. I worked with Sahid Jaffrey. He's an older actor. He's dead now. He was quite extraordinary actor. Hang on, notification from now. Oh no, that's nothing to do with us. A message came up. It's for my wife. That's why I'm Victoria Speed today. It's her computer. Would I love to? Yeah, I'd love to have the opportunity to come to India and work on a film. But I don't think. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, absolutely, I'm up for that. And I'd love to see. Yeah, probably more theatre. I'm much more comfortable in theatre. That is where I am most comfortable. That's where I know what I'm doing. In film, I would be a new boy learning new skills. But yeah, I mean, I love films. I went and saw the James Bond film yesterday for the second time, and I was I'm wowed by them. I love art films as well. I've got a massive DVD collection. I love films, but I don't really have the skills that they want. And the older you get, the harder it is to get in and do it. I mean, you know, that's just the way of the world. The world is getting younger. So, yeah, hey ho. Yes, I'll come and work in a rep, do a play. My CV is written here. And my email address is here. No.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, sir. We would love to see you in Indian cinema or Indian theatre.
Well, I'd love to come and just visit India. I mean, I was so disappointed when the History Boys, because we were meant to do that and a few others, and it collapsed as a deal, and unfortunately we didn't come. I already got really excited about it.
Definitely, sir. Well, just looking forward to that. And here we come up to the last segment of the talk.
All right.
Yeah, so on the behalf of the entire TEDxGECA team, I extend my really hearty vote to you, sir. And thank you so much for sparing time from your busy schedule to grace this occasion. So today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us for our future events. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure. And I wish all luck with the studies that you're all endeavoring to do, and with future projects. I mean, I read up about how I knew about TED Talks, but I didn't know about TEDx. I think it's a wonderful thing that happens all around the world, and I think it's brilliant you guys have done this. Mine is just a very little modest bit of it. I mean, when I read, I talk about imposter syndrome, but when I saw the other speakers, it was like, oh, how did I get myself involved? But I mean, I just spoke from the heart, and I have given honest answers to everything. Yes. And look, just good luck with it all. Good luck with your studies. Good luck with your future lives, and good luck with getting out of this horrible pandemic. And huge love to you all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we are going to have a group photo together. So I request everyone to please turn on their video so that we can have a good photo. All right. So 1, 2, 3, say cheese.
Cheese.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Send me a copy.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Thank you so much. All the best, and I hope you have good time for the rest of the afternoon. I've got to go and get on with my day now.
Okay, sir.
Thank you
Definitely.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.